Handicap, a Dvar Torah for Parashat Emor. Deep down, I'm still the same elementary school boy who loved reading fantasy books and dreaming of a life of adventure. Otherwise, there's no convincing explanation as to why I decide every few months to discuss sensitive issues that may trigger this or that part of society. At the same time, when I played Dungeons & Dragons, I was always the character who tended to avoid conflict, so I will try to scratch the wound without making it bleed. From the beginning of Sefer Vayikra, we've been dealing with the various roles of the Kohanim, be it around the work in the Mishkan, impurity, Havdala, or teaching. In our Parashah, we finally reached the laws of the Kohanim themselves, who may work among the Kohanim and who can't. After opening with the laws of purity, the Torah teaches that the Kehuna is not only a closed genetic club, to be a Kohen you must be born a Kohen, it also encourages discrimination against the disabled. A Kohen with a disability, a mum, cannot work in the Mishkan. The aforementioned prohibition doesn't fit the biblical narrative regarding treating the weak. It's enough to look at the previous Parashah in Perek Yud-Tet and find, among other things, a requirement to protect the poor, the deaf, the blind, the elderly, and the convert. The same narrative is further reinforced regarding the disabled in the words of the commentators who have great difficulty understanding the verse, the lame and the blind, those hated by David. Ha-pischim veha-ilmim snu'ei nefesh David. The simple understanding that David hates the disabled doesn't even occur to them. That is why banning the disabled from working in the Mishkan is puzzling, to say the least. The early commentators ignored the question unless we define an interpretation along the lines of, it is not proper for a person with a defect to work, which is what the Bechol says, as a response. I have difficulty with this definition because it leaves me in exactly the same place. Why is it not appropriate for a person with a defect to work? Chizkuni is one of the earliest commentators who sees a need to expand. It does not look becoming. This is an aesthetic matter. It's not respectable for a man with a disability to offer Hashem's offering. Why? For an answer, we'll have to wait 200 more years for Rabbi Yitzchak Arame in his commentary Akedat Yitzchak. According to him, it's visible and self-evident that such a worshipper cannot appear before him, God, and work. And yet, for whoever it wasn't obvious, he interprets that the Kohen, while at work, reflects a perfect angelic world, which is expressed by being pure and whole. The utopian explanation is interesting, but I found 2 points to be more interesting. The first is the continuation of the commentary, which explains that although while working Hashem seeks utopia, the handicapped Kohen eats like all other Kohanim. This is not about cruelty towards the disabled, but about defining suitability for the role. The second point I'd like to focus on is how taken for granted the notion was that people with disabilities were less fitting for certain roles than able-bodied people. It's so clear that until the 15th century, there's no need to mention it. In the 16th century, Rabbi Shlomo Ephraim Milunshitz, author of the Kli Yakar, tried to explain the internal spiritual connection between the disabled person and his inability to work in the Beit HaMikdash. But he balked at the words and pointed out that it was impossible to say that a defective exterior indicates damaged interior. His proof is that the Torah did not distinguish between a person born with a handicap and one who was injured during life. Therefore, just as it's impossible to claim that the blindness of a baby who was born blind is a punishment for wrongful behavior, it's impossible to claim the same for someone who is harmed later in life. Finally, the 19th century commentator Rabbi Meir Simcha Cohen of Dvinsk, in his commentary Meshech Chochmah, already talks about the fact that it's a chok, a decree from heaven. We don't have the tools to understand why God chose to allow this person to work and another person not to. Handicapped people cannot work in the temple for the same reason it's forbidden to wear shatnez, and that purification from touching a dead body is done only by using a red heifer, because that's how God decreed. Other commentators point out the differences between the Kohen with a disability who cannot work and an Israelite with a disability who can slaughter, check whether a disabled person is not allowed to enter the Azara at all or is only forbidden to work. And there are many other discussions we could have had, but I chose to focus on the evolution of the commentators' sensitivity towards the work of the handicap. Would even discussing this today be seen as legitimate or relevant? I'll wait for the comments to find out. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe or maybe share it with someone else. They might enjoy it too. I'm Dovi Holtz, one who loves sensitivity and Tanakh.